Well, I think music from the 1920s is a really fascinating way to organize a concert because in so much of American history up until then, so-called classical composers in America were doing their best to imitate what was going on in Europe. And so there was this one-way communication. Everything European was good, therefore needed to be imitated. But starting in the 1920s is when there was a two-way communication. There was a wonderful cross-pollination, and the reason was jazz. Jazz is a uniquely American invention, especially with someone like George Gershwin. And that great jazz music reached the European ears, and suddenly they wanted to write their version of jazz. And so I think it's wonderful when we do a concert called Roaring Twenties that we're expressing what was roaring in America as well as what was roaring in Europe that had a great American jazz influence. We have the music from the Threepenny Opera by Kurt Weill. So this is the 1920s, let's say, in Berlin, which was actually a kind of cynical time, titled Mac the Knife. Then we have Remembering Gatsby, which is by John Harbison, from his opera, The Great Gatsby, which was performed at the Met. And this is a distillation of some of the themes. It's very much American, and it's very much of the world of F. Scott Fitzgerald, but written by a composer who's still with us and still very much active. Then we have George Gershwin's Rhapsody in Blue, which of course revolutionized the concert world. George Gershwin is the one who crossed the musical tracks between Tin Pan Alley and Carnegie Hall, and he was the first one to incorporate jazz into a so-called classical concert. And then Ravel's Piano Concerto directly influenced by that. A lot of people might think that perhaps French music had some influence on American, but in this case it is that the American music influenced the French. But of course Maurice Ravel, with his very gorgeous sense of instrumentation, orchestration, and also stereotypically suave, what might be thought of as stereotypically French sensibility is to be found in that, along with some wild jazzy riffs. And in fact, it's the first concerto and probably the only concerto I know of to start with a whip solo. It's the first thing you hear, and then the piano starts playing. Aldo is one of those musicians who exudes joy, and not just joy in the music that he's playing, but especially joy in the collaboration with the particular musicians he's playing with. It's something that really reminds me of Yo-Yo Ma, actually, and I so much enjoying this principal cellist and this concertmaster and this principal clarinetist and so on. Aldo's the same way. So when he's playing his solo, you can see that he's trying to make beautiful chamber music together with us. And then when we're playing and he's not, then you see that he's basking in the beauty of the music that we play, really, literally, and viscerally enjoying what we're playing. I was thrilled to be able to discover that he was out there a couple of years ago and had a chance to work with him on these very same pieces. Rhapsody in Blue, the Ravel Piano Concerto are great pieces for first-time concertgoers, but I also think that the Threepenny Opera Suite and Harbison's Remembering Gatsby are also pieces that are great for first-time concertgoers because they're written in the vernacular of jazz. In one case, American jazz. In the other case, kind of a very perverted Germanic kind of jazz of Kurt Weill. But both of them are very, very different from what is often thought of as, quote, classical music, and certainly very different from the classic style of Mozart or Haydn or Beethoven. So I think already there's going to be a point of entry for anyone. But one of the things that we love to do with the Chicago Philharmonic is if there's any piece that's the least bit unfamiliar to the audience, we make sure that they're familiar with it before we even play it. I'll talk from the stage, or sometimes we have some of our musicians talk from the stage. All I'm trying to really explain is why I love it so much. I'm not trying to say you have to know this or you have to understand this in order to appreciate it. God forbid, that someone should feel that they're somehow not adequately prepared or informed or educated or rich enough or of the right gender or of the right race even to appreciate a certain piece of classical music. And that's what the Chicago Philharmonic is all about, is truly spreading the good word about classical music far and wide for everyone.